Anyway, my name's Charles Barringer, and I'm John's older brother by 5 years. I've got to read this because my memory isn't what it used to be, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit. John, he was the fourth child of 8 children. That is something to say. He is, in his early days and through his graduation from Loyola College, he lived in 2 different houses in Baltimore City. And in these houses, there were very tight quarters. And we were very crowded. Our family grew up to 11 people in one house, and that was a challenge. So we had 4 bedrooms. We moved to a larger house and had 4 bedrooms for these 11 people. And we had an attic that we slept the 4 boys in. Previous to that, John and I slept in the same bed for several years because we only had 3 bedrooms. And we had a grandmother that lived with us. So it was challenging. We had 5 males and 6 females. So you can imagine, this house had 1.5 bathrooms. And to schedule baths, showers, personal grooming for all these people, particularly on a Friday night with the girls, was impossible. And John, for some reason, he had this knack that he could convince anyone about anything. So what he would do is, anytime we had a scheduling issue, he would get up and he would straighten it out. He would be the guy we felt to fix the problems about getting your tub, getting your shower, going to the bathroom. With these 8 children, there's only a few siblings have passed away. He's got a sister that's now with him and a brother that's with him. He still has me, and he has my 2 sisters and one other brother that are still alive. And there were some really great times. Now, as a family, we knew that John was always going to be a researcher. When he was 9 years old, he went out in the park and found a bullet. And he said, I'm going to do some research on this. He says, I want to know if it makes a noise. So he took it and he put it into the oil-fired furnace that heated our house. Nothing happened. So he opened up the furnace door and looked in. Guess what? He got a sound. Not only did he get a sound, but he got shrapnel in his face. And he also got some noise from Mom and Dad. And then he had to go to the hospital and get all the shrapnel pulled out of his head. And a real trying time. He was lucky at that point that he didn't lose his eye. It was a very challenging time for him. Now I know since then he's had very, very many successful research projects. That one wasn't so successful. Now, when John was in his teenage and 20-something years, he saved a little money, and what he did is he went out and purchased his pride and joy. And this was a new car, a 1955 Saab 2-door, 3-cylinder engine, 2-cycle motor that delivered 28 horsepower. This car, the front wheels were further apart than the rear wheels. So every time he would come into the neighborhood and he would make the turn to come into our street, the right wheel, the one wheel on the back would come up off the ground. You would think it would fall over, but it never did. He really was the talk of the town for that car. But he knew with that car he could get tremendous gas mileage. It didn't cost him so much, so he was able to save some money and help himself, to go through college. I mean, in our family, we just didn't have a lot of extra money to go around. I mean, food and clothes was kind of important to us because of all the kids that were there. So John was so driven in his early days and worked so hard that I can't remember any time that he did something wrong, really wrong. And he was a good child, a good teen, good fellow. Now, he did spend a lot of time at our grandma's shore down on the Chesapeake Bay. And that's where he learned to fish, crab, swim, And every time he would catch a nice big fish, he'd come with a big smile. Hey, look what I got, look what I got. Now, as John aged, as he got a little older, our relationship between him and I changed, because I moved to places like Rochester, New York, Broadbrook, Connecticut, Hagerstown, Maryland, and then settled in Knoxville, Tennessee. And John, he was doing the same thing. He moved to Hagerstown, Maryland. Then he went to Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, St. Paul, Minnesota. Then he settled here in Pittsburgh. So we were kind of far apart, but we talked a lot on the phone. And of course, with emails, that was a good thing. We could communicate quite well. I had some very interesting visits to his place. See, I was a person that traveled a lot in my job. So I was able to go to all these places where he lived and stop and visit him and talk to him. And I went and met him in Pasadena, California. And this was right after an earthquake. They had an earthquake, and he was big to show me, hey, look, the water in my pool, it's all gone. He said, I was standing right over there. See where all those rocks are? He said, the chimney fell down. And he said, I had just moved away from there, and the chimney fell. So somebody was looking after him. You know, they all talk about God and everything. He was looking after him. John also came to visit us in Tennessee, and my mother. My mother moved down into Tennessee, and she lived on the lake, and she went fishing, and she did all that, and loved that sort of thing. And he did too. So we went fishing, we went boating, he went water skiing. He had a little trouble with the water skiing, but he went. But after he went out, and he caught a lot of fish. So we cleaned up the fish, and then he cooked them. He wanted to do the cooking, so he cooked them. And boy, it was a great meal. And he came, after he cooked the meal, he had a great big smile on his face. And it was really happy times to remember. Now, I don't know if you all know, but John was a good singer. He could really sing. And he was the best man in my way. And he sang the Lord's Prayer during the ceremony. And I tell you, excuse me. Sorry about that. That was the best wedding gift I could have had. Now, to me, John was a big deal.